Ureter. And what is it? This is testis, that is spermatic cord, that is deferent duct, and deferent duct goes to, it's joined with duct of seminal vesicle, here it is seminal vesicle, and forms ejaculatory duct, and ejaculatory duct opens into what? Prostatic part of urethra. That is bulbous penis. This is external sphincter of urethra. Here it is that inside of urinary bladder. Here it is internal sphincter of urethra. And what is this ligament? Suspensor ligament. Ligamentum suspensorium penis. Pubic symphysis, urinary bladder, female urethra, that is uterus. Here it is rectum, and canalis analis, that is vagina. Here it is upper part of the uterus, that is fundus. This is fallopian tube. Here it is this yellow structure, that is ovary. And this white structure, that is broad ligament of the uterus. Here it is vagina, anterior fornix, posterior fornix of vagina. This is portio vaginalis of the neck of the uterus, and above of it here, portio supravaginalis. Give me a piece of paper. Oh, copybook. This is uterus. That is uterus. It is vagina. That is fallopian tube. Fallopian tube. And it is broad ligament of the uterus. Ligamentum latum uteri. That is ligamentum latum uteri. Now, upper part of the uterus, above of fallopian tube, that is fundus of the uterus. Uterus in Greek, it is metra or hystera. Metra and hystera. And fallopian tube in Greek, that is salpinx. Well, we continue. Fundus of the uterus, here it is body. And this is neck, cervix uteri. And neck of the uterus consists of two parts. This part of the neck, which is insert into vagina, that is portio vaginalis, it surrounds with vagina. And upper part of the neck, above of vagina, that is portio supravaginalis. And between body and cervix, this is this place, that is isthmus of the uterus. Isthmus, that is border between body and neck of the uterus. Then coats of the uterus. Uterus has three coats. External coat, that is what? What is external coat? Yes, peritoneum, that is Sero's coat, peritoneum. That is, I cut pelvis in horizontal plane. Here it is pubic symphysis. Here it is sacral bone. What is this organ behind of pubic symphysis? That is, we cut in this level. That is why it is urinary bladder, near of rectum, that is near of sacral bone, that is rectum, and here it is uterus. Clear it is. Yes. And now peritoneum supplies posterior wall of urinary bladder, and peritoneum supplies rectum, and then peritoneum from lateral side of pelvis goes to the uterus and supplies it posteriorly and anteriorly, and then continues here and here. these two layers of peritoneum here and here, that is broad ligament, or another name that is mesometrium, like mesenterium, mesocolon in intestine. It is mesometrium, or broad ligament. They are the same. Broad ligament or mesometrium. Here, vessels and nerves comes to uterus and supplies it. That is how peritoneum supplies uterus from all sides. That is intra-peritoneal position. What is your mark in digestive system?
Exam.
4. Intraperitoneal position, medial coat of the uterus, that is muscular coat, muscular coat of the uterus, that is myometrium, that is the thickest coat, and inner layer, inner coat, that is endometrium. 3 coats. Then ligaments. Look here. One ligament goes to upper part of the body of the uterus, that is round ligament, ligamentum teres uteri. It passes in front anteriorly from broad ligament and attached to upper part of the body below from fallopian tube, here. And here that is round ligament, in front from broad ligament, round ligament of the uterus. And broad ligament comes to uterus laterally. All another ligaments, fixed neck, cervix, neck of the uterus. And one ligament start from pubic symphysis, that is ligamentum pubovesicale, and this ligament then continues into vesico-uterine ligament, ligamentum vesica uterinum. It is continuation of pubovesical ligament. Another, ligamentum recta uterinum, between rectum and uterus. Then sacro-uterine ligament, ligamentum sacro-uterinum. And last ligament, which also attached to the neck of the uterus, it is in lower part of the broad ligament. Here it is, laterally from the neck, at the base of the broad ligament, ligamentum cardinale uteri. All of these ligaments fixed neck of the uterus. That is why neck, it's not mobile. Neck of the uterus fixed in cavities of the true pelvis. But body and fundus, they are mobile. They can change position. Look here. Normal position of the uterus, that is pubic symphysis. Here it is urinary bladder, and that is uterus. Look here. That is body. This is cervix, and here it is vagina, and rectum, and canalis analis. That is normal position. In normal position, fundus of the uterus looks forward, like here. That is pubic symphysis. This is pubic symphysis. Fundus of the uterus. Fundus looks forward, and angle, this angle, look here, angle between body and cervix opens the same forward. Angle has name anteflexion, and position of the fundus anteversion. That is normal position of uterus. If urinary bladder is full with urina, look here, that is pubic symphysis, and that is urinary bladder with urina. In this case, fundus of uterus goes backward. That is cervix, and here it is vagina. In this case, we speak about retroversion, that is posterior position of fundus, but angle between body and cervix, that is, looks forward, that is anteflexion. If urinary bladder has urina, in this case, normal position is retroversion and anteflexion. An abnormal position, look here, that is pubic symphysis, here it is urinary bladder, and that is uterus. That is uterus. Heat is uterus. And heat is rectum and canalis analis. That is retroversion and retroflexion. That is abnormal position. In normal, this is correct position of uterus. Abnormal if angle between body and cervix looks backward. In this case, if woman pregnant in position of retroflexion, that it may be problem in time of delivery of fetus. Necessary to recommend cesarean section in this case because maybe some problems in time of delivery. That is normal position, anteversion and anteflexion. It's possible retroversion but anteflexion, and abnormal retroversion and retroflexion. All of my diagrams only for your understanding, not necessary to draw them. Some words about fallopian tube. Now, first of all, fallopian tube has 4 parts. First part of fallopian tube inside of uterus, that is pars uterina, put here number 1. Pars uterina, inside of the uterus. Near of uterus, this narrow part of fallopian tube, number 2, that is isthmus. Widest part of fallopian tube, that is ampule, number 3, ampulla tuba uterina, and ampule finished with infundibulum, and infundibulum has fimbria tubaria, and here it is present opening, ostium abdominale tuba. Ostium abdominale, and behind of broad ligament we have ovary, and after ovulation, if oocyte comes to abdominal cavity, and oocyte come to ostium abdominale tuba, and then pass through fallopian tube. Here it is take place fertilization, and after that oocyte come to the uterus and start pregnancy or not start. That is departments: pars uterina, isthmus, ampule, and infundibulum. And infundibulum has fimbria tubaria, and one longest fimbria which attached to the ovary, that is fimbria avarica. Fallopian tube, the same like uterus, has 3 coats. 3 coats. If we cut at this level, look here, this is fallopian tube, and what is below? That is broad ligament. That is peritoneum, which is surround. I cut here in sagittal plane. I cut fallopian tube with broad ligament. That is intraperitoneal position of fallopian tube, and upper part of broad ligament, this upper part, that is mesosalpinx, mesentery of fallopian tube, mesosalpinx. And behind of broad ligament, here it is posterior lamina of broad ligament attached to the ovary, here it is ovary. And these 2 layers of broad ligament which attach to the ovary, that is mesovarium, upper part of fallopian tube, that is of broad ligament which is attached to fallopian tube, mesosalpinx, and this part of the broad ligament, that is mesovarium. Now, middle coat is muscular coat of fallopian tube, consists of 2 layers, longitudinal and circular, and inner layer, that is mucous membrane. It has ciliated epithelium. Now, what we can see in preparatory bladder, here it is uterus, that is neck of the uterus, cervix, and cervix has 2 lips, anterior lip and posterior lip. Anterior and posterior lip, and between them opening, uterine opening. And here it is vagina, And between neck and wall of vagina, we can see two fornix, anterior fornix and posterior fornix. Anterior fornix is shorter and posterior fornix is longer. And here it is rectum and canalis analis. And you remember that peritoneum from rectum goes to posterior fornix of vagina, then uterus. From uterus, peritoneum comes to urinary bladder and anterior abdominal wall. Who remember what is this pole? Rectouterine, and here it is vesicular pole. This is deeper, and posterior fornix of vagina supplies with peritoneum, anterior fornix not supplies. That is why we can make punction of posterior fornix if some fluid heat is present and you need to put correct diagnosis. What is it? Is it pus or blood here? We can make punction and receive this fluid, and we need to decide what is necessary to do next. That is why posterior fornix of vagina supplies with peritoneum. What else? Anterior wall of vagina and posterior wall, we have two walls. And anterior wall has short oblique folds, and posterior wall the same, has short oblique folds. These folds has specific name, ruga vaginalis, and anterior folds makes columna rugarum anterior, and posterior folds on posterior wall makes columna rugarum posterior. And vagina opens into the vestibule, vestibulum vagina, that is space between labia pudendi minora. Look here, that is uterus. And first of all, necessary to identify where is anterior surface and where posterior. What is correct position of the uterus? I tell you that this is anterior surface, and here it is posterior surface. Why? Because ovary, this is ovary. Ovary is behind of broad ligament and behind of uterus. Here it is broad ligament, this is broad ligament of the uterus, and ovary is behind of broad ligament. If you take, next time, if you take uterus this way, if ovary is in front, that is wrong. Correct position, ovary should be behind of uterus and behind of broad ligament. Upper part of the uterus, that is fundus, then body, and cervix. And cervix, neck of the uterus, it opens into vagina, that is vagina, here it is absent, that is wall of vagina, should be here posterior fornix, and here anterior fornix, that is anterior lip of the cervix, and this one is posterior lip, and this is ostium of vagina, of uterus, ostium of uterus. Now, some words about ovary. Ovary has two ends. This end, which is near of uterus, that is extremitas uterina, and opposite end is not far from fallopian tube. That is, here it is fallopian tube, look here, this is fallopian tube, and this end of the ovary, extremitas tubaria, this is extremitas uterina. Now, two borders, this is free border, margo libera, and here it is margo mesovarium. Two surfaces, facies medialis and facies lateralis. Now, this ligament between extremitas uterina and uterus, we have ligament, ligamentum avarii proprium, proper ligament of the ovary. An opposite ligament, which is attached to tubarial end, that is ligamentum suspensorium avarii, suspensor ligament. Then here it is fallopian tube, inside of the uterus pars uterina, this is isthmus, then ampule, and ampule finished with infundibulum. Here it is broken upper part of the broad ligament. Here should be mesosalpinx, And this one is mesovarium, and broad ligament, that is ligamentum latum uteri. Anteriorly, this ligament in front of broad ligament, that is round ligament of the uterus. I take it. Round ligament, and round ligament attached to the uterus below from fallopian tube. Here it is the same, round ligament on the right side. And here it is broken fallopian tube, and that is place where round ligament attached to the uterus below from fallopian tube. What is here? Okay, this is, what is it? Urinary bladder, that is pubic symphysis, urinary bladder, female urethra, only this one. Here it is uterus, that is uterus. This is vagina, and here it is rectum. And now, this is pouch between uterus and urinary bladder, that is excavatio vesica uterinum, and behind of uterus, this one, this is excavatio recta uterinum. Now, I take with the forceps, that is fallopian tube, and below of fallopian tube, that is broad ligament. In front, anteriorly, in front of the broad ligament, this is, that is round ligament, ligamentum teres uteri. It is broad, that is fallopian tube. Here it is isthmus, ampule. Here it is infundibulum, and you can see fimbria, fimbria tubaria, and one longest fimbria, which goes to the ovary, that is fimbria avaricum. This ligament is suspensory ligament of the ovary. It goes to the extremitas tubaria, and this ligament is ligamentum avarii proprium, that is extremitas uterina, extremitas tubaria, margo mesovaricum, and here it is margo libero, free body, and that is mesovarium. You can see that here it is angle, that is neck of the uterus, and here it is body and fundus, and this angle, that is anteflexion, and position where fundus looks forward, that is anteversion. Organs: ovary, fallopian tube, uterus, and vagina. Next time. Well,